Hey everyone, welcome back to this Python series. In this lesson, we're going to be covering random number generators in Python. And to do this, we're going to be using the built-in module called random, and I'll show you a couple of examples that we can do with this module. So, let's get started. So first, before we can get started with any example, we first need to import the random module into our program. To do that, just simply type in import random. And we don't need to install anything extra because this is a built-in module that comes along with Python. And the first function of the random module that I'll demonstrate is the randint. So let's assign that to a variable, and I'll just simply call it random1 just so that it's easy to refer to. And then we'll type in random, which is the name of our module, and then we'll call the function randint, and let's choose a range. So it actually says it right here, it returns a random number in the range, so let's do from 1 to 5. And what this does is it generates a random number within this range, and it's also inclusive of 1 and 5. So it will take in the lower boundary and the upper boundary, it will be inclusive of those. So you will have a chance that these numbers will also pop up, not just the ones in between the two numbers. So you can think of it as 1 to 5 inclusive. Now let's go and print that. So print random1, and we can run this program a couple times, and we might get lucky and get the same number from time to time, but it should be different mostly. So let's run this program, and the first one it generated was 3. Let's try and run it again, and it's 5, and it's back to 3. Let's get another number. Okay, so this time it's 4, and like I said, it is inclusive, so you can see how it also printed 5, so it's not excluding number 5. So that's what I meant when I said earlier that this is inclusive. Now, I'm just simply running it with F5 so that I don't have to manually run it over and over, which can get quite tedious at times. But let's go and we can change the upper value. Let's see. Actually, we can also edit the first one, so it can be between 3 and 11. And it should have the same logic, but this time with different boundaries. So if I run the program, it's saying 7, and one of it says 6, and you get the idea, basically. So the next one I want to demonstrate is the .random function. So let's do that, and let's assign this to another variable called random2, and we'll actually comment out the previous examples. So every time we're done with one example, we will comment that out so that it doesn't cause any confusion when we run the program and both examples run. I want it to be obvious enough for the viewers. So let's assign this to another variable. I will call it random2 just to be uniform like the first one. So equals random.random, and what this does is it will print any random float between 0.0 inclusive and also 1.0, but that one is exclusive. So it won't go below or above what I just mentioned. And now this time it's not inclusive for both. It's only inclusive of the first one, which was 0.0, and 1.0 is exclusive, which means that it will specifically be lower than that, but the value can equal 0.0. So let's print that out right now onto the interactive shell, and let's run the program again. And now you can see it generated us a float, and that just simply means a number with decimals. So I can run it over and over. It doesn't really matter. It will always generate something different each time. So that's one example of the .random. Now let's comment this out and move on to the next one, which is going to be .randrange. And let's do this with random3, and then let's do random.randrange, and let's first do 10. We'll pass in some other arguments later on, but let's do 1 for now, and then we can print out that variable. And what this does is that it will generate a random integer from 0 all the way to 9, and it will not include 10, but it will include 0. So it will just go from 0 to 9. If you wanted to include 10, we will have to change this to 11. But for this one, I'll just simply do 10, and if I run this program, now it will print out a whole number, 5. I run this program again, it will print out 1, and it will just keep doing that from 0 to 9, and it will never reach 10, but it can reach 0, however. So if we get lucky enough, that will happen, but we don't have to really wait till that happens, but just demonstrating with this example over here. So then the next one I want to show you is the same one, rand range, but this time we will pass in some extra arguments to that, and we can comment that out right now, the first one. So if you want to comment it out, just simply do triple quotation marks and close that off with another triple quotation mark, and that will turn it green. Then let's do random 4, and like I mentioned, we are doing rand range again. So random range, and let's take in every random odd integer from 1 to 9. So since we only had 10 earlier, it would take by default the minimum was 0, and then it would go all the way to 9 just underneath 10. So to do this, let's do 1. So this time, instead of starting from 0, it will start from 1, comma, 10. So again, it will be 10 exclusive, but 1 inclusive. And then to get all the odd integers, we will do the step, which is 2. So that instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on, it'll go 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. And that is because it's counting by 2 instead of counting by 1. And we can go and print that out, random 4. Oh, we also have to type in rand range. I made a typo just now, so let's go run the program a second time. And there you go, it says 1, and if I run it again, it should be another integer, an odd integer, which is 5. And let's run it again, it's back to 1, and if we run it, it's back to 1 again. So sometimes the same numbers can print, but if you keep doing it over and over, eventually you should get another number, which I just did. So it printed out number 1 3 times, so we got lucky there. Now it's printing 7, but if you notice, every time we run it, it's never printing out any even number, it's just printing out any odd numbers, because from 1 to 10, with 10 exclusive, it can only have the values 1, 3, or 5, or 7, or 9. So that's an example, another example of the .rand range that we can do instead of just having only one number passed to it. So now we can comment that out since we're done with that example. And the next one I want to show you is the .uniform function. And what it does, it's something similar to the rand int, but this time this will deal with floats. So let's get started. Let's do random 5, and then equals random.uniform. And we don't have to really do a huge range. Let's just simply do 1 to 10. And then we can do print random 5, and we can go and run this program right now. And now you can see that it will stay within that range from 1 to 10, but every time we print, it gives us a decimal value instead of what happened in the previous example, where it gave us a whole number. It gives an integer each time. So this is what you will do, the .uniform. That's what you'll do if you want to deal with random float values instead of random integer values. Okay, and now since we're done with these over here, let's go and deal with some random number generators, but with lists. And let's do the .choice method for this. So before we get into that though, let's create ourselves a list. So I'll call it list 1, and for this list we can add in a couple of different things. Let's do fruits. So let's do apple, banana, watermelon, orange. It doesn't really matter how much you pass. I would say the more the better, but I'll just simply stick with these that I've mentioned here. So we're gonna do apple, banana, watermelon, orange, and grape. So we have 5 different items in this list. Now let's do the .choice. So this is going to be used to randomly select any element from a non-empty sequence. So this is our sequence over here, this list. And to do this, let's assign a new variable. Let's simply call this random fruit, and then we can do random.choice, and then in this parentheses we can add in the name of our list, and we called it list1, so let's run it. Oh, actually we need to print that out, so then print random fruit and then run it, and now it should pick. So in this case we picked index 0. Don't forget that it's not index 1. Remember that when it comes to lists, the index starts at 0, not 1. So it picked apple, the first index, which is index 0, and we can run this again, and now it picked grape, which is on the fourth index. Yes, it is number 5 on the list, but remember we are counting from 0, so it's actually the fourth index. So if you run this again, we should get another one, which is the first index, banana. And we can also do this with numbers. Let me demonstrate. So let's do 3, 55, 87, 90, 45. So we're doing a different data type for this. And let's run this. And it should still have the same still the same effect, just picking any random item in the list. And this time we have a different data type for this list. So that is perfectly fine if you want to use a different data type. Alright, so that's it for .choice, and let's do one that will shuffle whatever we have in this list. And random.shuffle is used to shuffle or reorder the elements of a sequence. So to do this, I think it's actually better if we have more stuff in our list. So what I'm going to do is add in a couple more numbers. Let's add in 180, and now we can actually if you want to make a new example, let's go ahead and do that just to keep things simple, or things less confusing actually. So let's copy and paste that, and then what we can do is do random.shuffle and then do list1, and then we can print out how the list will look like after we shuffle that list. And then let's run it. And you can see that actually what we should also do is add in the original list. So let's print that. So remember how Python programs run from the top and move down. So the first print function will print the list as it originally was, and the second print function will print the list after it's been shuffled around. So let's run that. And you can see that our original list starts with 3 and ends at 180, just like how it is over here. And now that we've shuffled it, it is now starting from 90, 55, 33, 87, and if we run this program again, it should shuffle randomly each time. So you can see that the numbers are not always all the same. Like, we got lucky that 90 was again put as the first index, but let's run it maybe a couple more times. And now you can see that it has changed to 45 and 33 and 3 and all that. So that's what you can do. You can shuffle things in a list as well with this. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to show you is the random.sample. And what this is used to do is to randomly choose a certain amount of unique elements from a given population without needing to repeat or replace anything. And that will make more sense as I demonstrate. So if I comment out this last example, oops, and we can do another list. I think what we should do is I'm just gonna copy and paste this one over here and add in a couple more numbers. And we can also add in another data type. Let's do test. So we have most of it is integers, and we have one data type which is a string. And remember that if you're doing a list, you can combine different data types. That is perfectly fine. So just to spice things up a little bit, let's combine that data type. We can get rid of that print function. I just simply wanted to print it just to show you that it works. And then we can do sampled numbers equals random.sample, and then we'll take in 2 arguments for this. So we'll take in 2 arguments, and then let's first do the name of our list, which we did list1, and then let's do a sampled amount of 4. And what we can do now is do print, and then let's do the original list, which was the list 1. We'll just simply call the original one. And then the next thing we can do is the sampled list, and then we can call our second variable, which was sampled underscore numbers. And let's run the program and see what happens. So then it will take the original list, which we declared over here, and then the sampled list. It will take 4 random values from that list and then sample it together. So let's run it. It should be different each time. If I run that, it took 4 different random values from the list and sampled it into another. And then we can also control this. Let's do maybe 3 instead of 4. And that should do the same thing. This time instead of 4, it will have 3. Just like that. Okay, so that's it for this random number generator lesson with the random module. Stay tuned for the next lesson, and I'll see you there.